This week, in our first segment, we welcome Jonny Noble, the technical marketing team lead at Cisco Umbrella, to discuss securing user connections to applications. Then in the leadership and communication articles this week, attracting talent during a worker shortage, CISOs say application security is broken, 3 steps to harden your Active Directory in light of recent attacks, and demystifying the RockU 2021 password disclosure. Stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of Business Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Cybercriminals are using social engineering loaded with urgency and fear to successfully prey on victims, your employees, or your customers. Protect your Office 365 email from today's most sophisticated attacks with Barracuda Email Threat Scanner. It's a free tool to help protect your business from these hard-to-detect attacks. The Barracuda Email Threat Scanner uses artificial intelligence to hunt and eliminate Office 365 email threats. Find the cybersecurity threats hiding in your Office 365 email right now. Get your free email threat scan at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. We're proud to announce CISO Stories, a new podcast series in partnership with Cybersecurity Collaborative and Cyber Reason. CISO Stories features the candid perspectives and experiences of frontline senior security executives and dives deep into timely security topics. CISO Stories is hosted by Todd Fitzgerald, VP of Cybersecurity Strategy at Cybersecurity Collaborative, and Sam Curry, Chief Product and Security Officer at Cyber Reason. Listen weekly as they speak with extraordinary CISOs by visiting securityweekly.com/CSP. Welcome, everyone, to episode number 220 of Business Security Weekly for June 14th, 2021. I am your host, not Matt Alderman, Paul Asadorian. That's right. I am joined in studio by Mr. Jason Albuquerque, also not Matt Alderman.
Also not Matt, but in studio, which is a beautiful thing.
It's awesome. It's nice to have you in studio.
It's great. I love it.
We decided to have cigars. Well,
yes.
That's a given.
That's
and
a
then
total
we
given.
decided to have beers, we decided to have an adult beverage.
Sure.
We made that decision long before the show.
Yes.
It was a question of which adult beverage based on what was on hand.
So many options.
Yeah.
So many options.
I'm like, I don't have limes, so this is shaping.
So that narrows it down a little
narrows
bit.
It down. On the lines remotely, Mr. Adrian Sanabria joins us today. Adrian, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Also not Matt. Also not in Colorado.
Also, no, you're not drinking, or you are drinking, or
cigar game.
I'm on my second round of coffee for today. I've got my afternoon coffee, so
that's definitely vodka.
It's coffee.
It's vodka, man.
The vodka. Who has the vodka?
No, it's from Cheech and Chong. Remember with the judge? It's vodka, man. Oh boy. Well, now I have to. Jonny said like, "Oh, you know the drill." And I'm like, no, I really don't, because I don't host the show very often. I have no idea what I'm doing. Pay no attention to anything I say. I do have announcements, though. Security Weekly is ecstatic to announce that Security Weekly Unlocked will be held in person December 5th through the 8th at the Hilton Lake Buena Vista. Call for presentations and early registration for Security Weekly listeners is now open. You can visit securityweekly.com/unlocked. We'd love to have you submit your presentation and or register early for the early bird registration price before it expires. Join us on June 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Learn how web application firewalls can help mitigate exposure in a complex threat landscape. Visit securityweekly.com/webcast. Register today. Or if you missed any of our previously recorded webcast or technical trainings, you can find them at securityweekly.com/on-demand. This segment is sponsored by Cisco Umbrella. Folks can learn more at securityweekly.com/Cisco Umbrella. Umbrella, I should say. You know how to spell umbrella. I don't, obviously, by the way I say it. Jonny Noble leads the technical marketing team for cloud security at Cisco with expertise in Cisco Umbrella and surrounding SASE-related technologies. He joins us today to talk securing user connections to applications. Jonny, welcome to the show.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here. And I guess I was left off that memo, so I'm just stuck with boring espresso and no cigar.
Espresso is pretty awesome, though.
It is.
It is.
It is. I have my little machine next to me, actually.
Yes, that's awesome. So, Johnny, I think we're talking about something that I wanted you to kind of set the stage for in this segment: secure web gateways. How would you define a secure web gateway, and what's its intended purpose and value?
All right. So, kicking off then, secure web gateway. It's a proxy for web traffic, and as probably a lot of people know, web makes up a lot of the internet traffic today. And we're talking about, going to websites and certain apps that usually quite often follow the web protocol as well. So we're talking about HTTP and HTTPS. So the secure web gateway is basically a proxy, like a man in the middle, where all the web traffic is going through that proxy. And over the years, we've seen the evolution from on-prem proxies. So it could be at the gateway or the sort of network edge, part of your security stack. And this is now moving to be in the cloud. And as users get closer to cloud-based apps and networks are becoming more decentralized, it makes sense to move the proxy architecture to the cloud. So what we're doing in these proxies in the secure web gateway is inspecting traffic, as I said, HTTPS as well. So a large proportion of web traffic today is encrypted. It's HTTPS. So we need to decrypt that so that we get full visibility. And then we're applying a number of different engines that perform different functions. So you've got basic security functions, more advanced security functions. You've got visibility. You've got control of apps. You've got access policies to different web-based categories, allow and block lists. And then you've got, as I said, the app control. So you can do things like not only allow and block certain apps, but then you've got more granular control where you can say, okay, I'm going to allow, let's say, I'm going to allow Dropbox in my organization, but I'm not going to allow users to upload files to Dropbox. And then you've got even more advanced app controls like tenant controls. So you can say a user is going to be allowed to log into Google or Office 365 with their corporate credentials, but not with private credentials, and all additional controls as well. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, what a secure web gateway is.
You're taking me back in time. We used to manage the outbound proxies at an organization I worked at, and we used, now I can't even remember the open source project that we used, but it gives you an incredible amount of visibility and potentially control over the areas that you want it. And the logs for that were a great source for security incident response as well. Is that a component as well, Johnny?
It is, yeah, and it's very important as part of any proxy or secure web gateway, or even taking it further to a secure internet gateway today, that you can export those logs. Even if it's cloud-based, you need to be able to export your logs and import them into some other platform that you may be using, let's say a SIM or a SOAR, and this is absolutely for incident response and getting alerts and sort of taking that intel or taking those logs and joining them together with logs from other platforms and forming intel out of that.
And how do you force the users to go over the proxy when they're working remotely? Is that like a Windows group policy in conjunction with the browser? Like, how does that work?
There's a few different ways, but if we're talking sort of strictly about remote users that aren't typically on an Office network, it's a lot easier when you're on the Office network, and all traffic is going to go through the firewall and then sort of get forwarded to the cloud proxy or on-prem. But when we're talking about remote users, then it's a bit more complex, but it's very doable as well. So in the case of Umbrella, we're using the combination of Cisco's AnyConnect VPN client. So even if you're already using this client for your VPN, then it's basically just a checkbox somewhere, and then the Umbrella enforcement gets added. And if you're not already using AnyConnect, then you can use it only for the Umbrella enforcement. And then you mentioned GPO policy, so you can lock down the AnyConnect module. There's different variations for Windows and MacBooks, And yeah, you can prevent a user from getting around that.
Yeah. Is that really one of the biggest threats right now, in your opinion, Johnny, is basically users succumbing to phishing or visiting a website that gets them owned?
It certainly is, because very often users are the weakest link, and in many cases it's not an issue of an employee maybe wanting to go past sort of bypass the security solutions. It's not thinking, clicking on a link. The phishing today is so sophisticated. It's unless you're really, really on the ball and well educated, and your company is doing a good job at educating you, it's very easy to fall. And yeah, we're very fast to click. And so yeah, human nature is social engineering is definitely the weakest link, and that's why you do need a good tool to be able to leverage and sort of compensate for those clicks that the users are making without thinking.
And I would say, Johnny, and just knowing a lot from being, in a past life, a Cisco Gold partner, it's the ecosystem as well, right? You have a tool, but you also have an ecosystem behind you in Cisco. So, you have not only Umbrella, but you also have, the rest of the ecosystem with Talos Threat Intelligence on the back end, right? You have Cisco's CASB. You have the next generation firewalls that play into that with firepower. So Umbrella is a great tool, but it's part of an ecosystem that gives you even better controls, better visibility, better response times, right, for the teams, and it creates a level of economies of scale for the teams, and it also creates a level of context across your entire network, which I think is very, very powerful, right? So Umbrella's a piece, but it's a piece of a powerful ecosystem.
Correct. It's really important, and we look at it at at a layered approach to security. So you could compare it to your house. Okay, when you go out for the evening, you're going to lock the door, you're going to lock the windows. You might have a perimeter fence, and you might have a dog, and you might have an alarm. So all of these are additional layers of security, making it harder for maybe a thief to get in. And it's the same with security. So even if we just start with Umbrella itself, we look at a layered approach. So just thinking of what I was talking about before with the AnyConnect client, that is not only operating at the web layer, but also at the DNS layer. So all connections to the internet will start with a DNS query, and we can block a lot of threats, command and control, ransomware, other malware that are going out. And the nice thing about DNS, it's all ports and protocols. So that will sort of give the rest of the coverage for any traffic that's not specifically web. And then like you said, if we look at the whole ecosystem, it's also a layered approach. You've got your endpoint security, so AMP for endpoints. You've got your next-gen firewalls. So we sort of look at endpoint, network, and cloud. And then bringing all that together, even though there is a lot of all these solutions have shared intelligence from Talos, just as you mentioned, and a lot of the engines are similar, they're still operating in different stages and giving you that nice multi-layer level of protection. And sort of, if you think about everything that Cisco sees, as I said, in those three areas, cloud, networks, and endpoints, all that intel is shared, and all being cloud-based, all of these engines can share the intel very, very quickly, so that if let's say, I don't know, AMP for endpoints detects a malicious file, within seconds the whole of the ecosystem sees that. And if somewhere else, an Umbrella customer, that file is going through, then the AMP file reputation engine will already know that is a malicious file and block it without having to do any further detection or advanced analysis or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges historically that we've had with these technologies. If I go back in my career when we were implementing this, if you implemented any kind of blacklist, there was always an exception on your proxy, right? And it sounds like, Johnny, that could be the reason why some aren't happy with their secure web gateways, and also a problem that Cisco is taking head on, is to reduce that friction, right, between users and the security products at this layer.
Correct. And hey, it's all about APIs. One platform somewhere will discover something and block it. and that intel can be fed into Umbrella through APIs, and it will be on the Umbrella block list as well. So, as you said, reducing the friction.
Or not on the block list if it needs to come off, I think is really one of the things that's almost
okay. Yeah.
important, right?
So false positives as well. You need to be accurate. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Adrian?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I've always said that email is the worst API, and back when I was on the enterprise side, we had so many processes where somebody was just emailing IP addresses back and forth for somebody to put on a blacklist or a block list somewhere. And it was just painful watching that happen. I do have to compliment you, Jonny, because you're frustratingly effective at answering all my questions as I come up with them. So far, I've written down. I usually pop open, like a notepad or something like that to write my questions so that I don't forget them. And just as quickly as I've been writing them, I've been removing them off of there because you keep
I got the cheat list beforehand. That's why.
Well,
you knew what I was going to ask before I did. Apparently,
that's right. I think this does segue into SASE a bit, right? I mean, because when we talk about restricting what users can do or guiding them into the right place and protecting them regardless of where they are, we've traditionally thought of VPNs, but this seems like it would play nicely into the whole SASE architecture, right?
Absolutely. SASE is where everything is going, and Umbrella is very much part of Cisco's SASE strategy. Because we've sort of made the segue into this because we've spoken about remote users and decentralizing of branches. And so as all of these, all of the use of the internet and applications today is moving to the cloud, this is where networking and security is coming together. And it's today it's very gray. It's a very gray area where those two converge. And so that's what SASE is really. It's making the connections to these applications secure and doing it in a way that will be transparent to the end users, working out the best place where they're using them, where they're working from, if it's remote users or roaming users, or in an office or in a guest office. It's including zero trust as well, which is simplifying the network architecture and making sure that users can connect securely to the applications and other destinations they need to.
Do you also recommend browser isolation, or does the Secure Web Gateway function as browser isolation? Because one of my things about browser isolation is I can isolate the browser, sure, but users still need to get perhaps files in and out of that isolated environment. It sounds like Secure Web Gateway is kind of a nice either complement or replacement for that.
Actually, it's funny you ask, because I would say that the two technologies complement each other very nicely. And so if you look at Umbrella, part of the solution is isolation. So you can set up your web rules and say, for certain things I'm going to allow, others I'm going to block, others I'm going to present a warning page. These are all the outcomes or the actions. And then in one of the rules, you can also say that the action will be to isolate. And so it's an integrated part of Umbrella. And so and the same goes, so it's not only like browser sessions, but it's also web-based documents. You can see them isolated in the browser. I mean, it's such a great technology today that end users really wouldn't know that their browsing sessions, or some of them, are getting isolated. There's only like a little telltale indication, just a little icon at the bottom of the screen that the user might notice. And this includes things like video and audio, and the end user would have no idea. But what's nice about documents, you mentioned documents, is when a user sees, let's say a PDF in a web browser, they can then, if they want to download that PDF, they will be downloading a sanitized version of it. So the RBI, the web browser isolation engine, what it's doing is it's taking sort of like an image of that PDF and recreating a clean one. So if there's any kind of JavaScript or any other threats that have been injected into that PDF, it's being run in some remote isolated browser, virtually in our cloud, and the end user will get the clean version.
That's amazing. Actually, I don't,
I
don't often say that about.
But correct me if I'm wrong.
But that is really, because you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and here's the kicker too, right, Johnny? And correct me if I'm wrong. There is Office 365 hooks for Umbrella as well, isn't there?
Correct.
Yes. So think about this. Anything from Office 365 traffic, which would be OneDrive, Files, SharePoint, Teams. Now you have Umbrella protecting that, right? So there's the APIs that you can have there.
Exactly, the APIs. That's the nice thing about it, because Microsoft are pretty much saying, hey, you don't need to inspect and decrypt Office 365 traffic. Think about it when you've got Word documents open that you're sharing through SharePoint, and different people collaborating on them. These are long-lived threads, and many of them as well. So Microsoft are pretty much saying, we'll take care of the security. We don't recommend going through a proxy, but if you are going to send them through a proxy, and customers want to do this in many cases, so they still get the visibility and the logging. So what we're doing is we're hooking up to this API that you mentioned from Microsoft, and it's pretty much saying, telling the proxy which of the Office 365 destinations can be sort of bypassed from the proxy, so no decryption, no inspection, and which are the others that it's okay to decrypt. And again, it's all done in the back end, and it's all and as Microsoft updates this list, it's all done through the API, so it's all automated and up to date.
So, question for you on the isolation stuff. It sounds like you're doing some sanitization there, maybe some rewriting of HTML rather than, I've seen browser isolation where the actual browser session lives remotely somewhere, in a data center in the cloud or something like that. And for that, you need some kind of special, agent to be able to do that. You can't use your normal web browser. But from what you're saying, it sounds like this is the other kind where you're actually rewriting the content to sanitize it, and you can just use a normal web browser?
Exactly. You don't need anything special at all on the end user side. Yep.
Gotcha.
That, again, is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Actually. It is, yeah. Yeah. I mean, today it's sort of never-ending, all these ideas that are coming to light. And just as an example, one of the other things that we recently added, and it's now included for Umbrella customers, is what we're calling cloud malware detection. So this is the inspection of data at rest. So when I say data at rest, there's no need for these files to be going through the proxy. We're using APIs in the back end, and we're inspecting the instances of the customer's sanctioned cloud-based storages. So we're talking about things like Box, Dropbox, Office 365, of course. And then what we'll do is we'll use these APIs to go and inspect all of those files, and we'll push them through the same engines that the proxy is using, but without them having to go through the proxy. So the use case here, this is really useful if you've got some kind of shared cloud-based storage that you're allowing your partners maybe to access and upload their files to. And you want to make sure that those are clean files before they do any damage and start spreading to your network.
I actually have that requirement. That's interesting.
Yeah, we're familiar with that use case.
Yes.
One of the things that really excited me when Cisco started really getting into the SASE market, right, was when they flipped over and started offering SD-WAN, right? And it was before the cool kids were jumping on SD-WAN, right? Because they made an acquisition back in the day. And then as you watch that product mature, now with integration, Umbrella integration into SD-WAN, because I see more and more organizations saying, you want to know what? Traditional networking, traditional carrier services, all that stuff, forget about it. I'm going SD-WAN for my branch offices. And it's amazing how many organizations, enterprise organizations, are flipping that switch to SD-WAN. But then for me as a security person, I'm saying, all right, now how am I protecting that? Because it's straight internet at that point, right?
Right.
So now you're going over internet, right, to create your networking basically. and an incredible product, right, which was Viptela back in the day, and now is Cisco SD-WAN. The integration of Umbrella into that just totally set me at ease, right, as a CISO in an organization. And for me, that was the kicker of, all right, let's go hot on this, right, because now I knew I had that protection of Cisco on the back end from Umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. This is part of the branch transformation, exactly what I was saying before, and you're saying now. So you're allowing direct internet access from your branches. SD-WAN is very much part of that, for simplified management and best routing decisions and the optimized end user experience. But yeah, you're going direct to internet. You want that to be secure. Yeah. And that's all going through our cloud platform, and being a multi-tenant cloud native architecture, you don't need to worry about different instances and appliances or even virtualized instances per branch. And then the cherry on the top of all of this, you mentioned with Viptela, and this is also possible today with SD-WAN from Meraki. It's all simplified. The way that these branches connect to Umbrella is through an IPsec tunnel. So all of your traffic will go up to Umbrella in the cloud. And we've automated the establishment or the building of these tunnels. So if you're connecting, hundreds of branches, it's just a matter of applying templates and a few clicks, and that tunnel will automatically be built. So there's none of this sitting now and configuring in CLI or manually building these tunnels per branch. It's all.
I've been there.
Yeah,
it was pretty tedious and never worked the first time. Right, that was the thing.
You need to have done this in the past to appreciate it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the other innovation here, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember getting into SDP early on, which I'm not sure if that's been entirely rebranded as ZTNA or not, but you don't have to expose VPN services to the public internet to be able to create those tunnels. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's the direction we're taking it right now with remote access, and that's how users are going to be connecting to private apps and public apps and the general internet, and sort of take pretty much like private access, remote access, sort of taking VPN further as well. And this is very much part of SASE as well.
Okay. Yeah. So, also out of curiosity, we've got the stat here. 1 in 10 are not happy with their secure web gateway, and I would, I'm thinking about those other 9 out of 10. I'm thinking the other 9 out of 10 are, not even aware of it, or they're just like secure web gateway is not something where you hear people like raving and ranting about how much they love it. It's just kind of something that's there. Right. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, like what people run into that they dislike with their secure web gateways. What are some of the, some of the things that trip them up, that cause them problems, that you guys can smooth out there?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I would answer this by splitting into 2 different categories. You've got the admin side, so the management, and then you've got the end user experience. So I would probably say, we've spoken about some of this already today, but as an admin, if I'm constantly managing allow and block lists and, having to add different destinations or remove, so that could be a bit of an admin nightmare. But today it's a lot simpler, and I think today it also goes down to the accuracy of the threat intel, and if that's accurate, then you won't have a lot of these false positives. I would also say, as an end user, that it's pretty much expected that any kind of security solution is going to add some kind of impacts to the end user's experience. At the end of the day, we are breaking the traffic, decrypting it in most cases when it's HTTPS, inspecting it, applying all of these engines. I've spoken probably about 6 or 7 different engines, maybe even more today, that each one's doing their magic. Obviously, it's all happening in parallel. We don't need to wait for one of these engines to come back with its verdict, and the next one will say, okay, now I'll start. But I think as time goes on, and especially when we're doing all the heavy lifting in the cloud, using everything's in containers and microservices, I think the impact is minimized today compared to hardware-based appliances that were doing these were the traditional web proxies, secure web gateways on-prem. And as the internet got richer, the throughput that was going through it was getting wider, and more load on the hardware as the software got more sophisticated as well. So I think that's probably one of the key reasons why users, end users in particular, were not happy with having their web traffic go through a proxy. On top of that, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about corporate end users using corporate assets, devices, and accessing, corporate
resources,
applications as well. So there is going to be some kind of access and limitations on what they can and cannot do. So even though it's for the good of the organization, I guess some end users just aren't going to be happy with that, if they don't want to, if they're not allowed to go, I don't know, to eBay or Facebook during the day.
Right. The more classic WebSense content, content restrictions, which becomes, it's less of a security thing and more of a
policy,
like a
acceptable use type.
Yeah, I think
acceptable
so.
It's more use, HR type of thing. Yeah.
It's I think today, if I'm blocking certain destinations because of productivity, fine. And an end user can pull out their cell phone, get off the corporate Wi-Fi. And everyone's got unlimited cellular data today. They can spend the whole day on Facebook if they want on their phone. So people don't really care about browsing time and those kind of quotas anymore.
Yeah, and I'll say, the frustrating piece with the legacy style web gateways was that we went out and we bought a siloed product. I keep evangelizing ecosystem, right? And the benefit of the ecosystem creates operational efficiencies, efficiencies within the team, configuration efficiencies, right? It's just being part of a larger ecosystem is such a benefit, and I can't evangelize that more. A lot of the frustration
email is a terrible API.
Yeah, right. I can't evangelize that more. Well, that brought a level of success to my team going into that ecosystem model.
And I think to your point, to Johnny's points about the integrated environment, I do one thing for my kids at home where I can block websites that aren't previously known. Right. And they, the product that I have is for home use, and it compiles a list. I can't tell you how many times that's actually saved us from getting malware. Now, I don't know that I would put that into an enterprise strategy unless I had all those other connections that could tie things together. Like, if that user's trying to go to it, and that user's trying to go to it, and this other user's trying to go to it, well, maybe that's a legitimate site, and I should let someone make a decision, or just make the decision for you.
And I've done that, right, within my corporate environment, and this is a perfect example. One of the owners of the company, right, hit me up and said, "Why can't I get to this restaurant?" Right. Well, come to find out, they spun up their domain like 3 days before. It was too new. They had no reputation at all.
Of course. So that's a classic use case for browser isolation. Unknown, isolated. Happy end user, and everything stays secure. So that's a use case.
Permit the action, but put this extra layer of defense in place.
Yeah, that's smart.
Absolutely, yeah. And by the way, again, talking about the layered approach and the ecosystem, you're totally right. And that's where SASE becomes so important, because when we talk about, let's say as an example, Umbrella, we've got the multi-layer approach. It in itself is a ecosystem. We're talking about, I spoke about the DNS layer, then we spoke about the web layer. Then there's a cloud delivered firewall. So all ports and protocols, and you've got not only, so this could replace, like an outbound firewall in small branches where you've got your source destination ACL ports protocols, but we've taken it further. We've got layer 7 AVC, application visibility and control. So a lot of apps may not necessarily be web-based. And then we're using, you see behind me this collection of colorful snorty pigs. Snort 3 is Cisco's engine for inspecting these layer 7 applications. So we can see a whole lot more. And then, we spoke about CASB and some of the application controls. It's a definite ecosystem, and that's what SASE is all about, bringing these components together, going with a vendor that has that vision, and sort of growing with that vendor as well, looking where they're going, looking at the vision, not necessarily what is only on the truck today, and not necessarily going with point products, even though Gartner's saying don't go with best of breed, go with a vendor that has everything, and go with one vendor with the whole ecosystem.
Right. And then you integrate Cisco email security in there. You have, the geodiversity of Cisco worldwide. You're all cloud-based centric products now, right? So that that SASE posture is definitely putting folks into a position to be shows the level of success we were at least able to achieve by having that integrated product line.
Jonny, thank you. Closing thoughts, Jonny, and then we're a little over time.
No, it's good. Yeah, okay. Closing thoughts. I would say, first of all, ecosystem, multi-layer. We've spoken a little bit about email. That is still the number one vector of attacks today. You need a good system that can compensate for end users not thinking, because they are still going to be the weakest link. There's some more additional places I could go. Obviously, in the interest of time, DLP, inline DLP, is another area that's part of Umbrella. So having all of these layers, you're going to prevent end users from not thinking and exposing data or sensitive information, social security, credit card, all those kind of things. But yeah, everything comes together nicely as one ecosystem, and you can sort of use those building blocks and integrate whatever you need to. And yeah, we always need to be ahead of the attackers, because it's not getting any easier. The attacks are getting more sophisticated, and so the layers of protection need to be as well.
Jonny, thank you so much for appearing on Business Security Weekly.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Folks can learn more at securityweekly.com/Cisco Umbrella. Coming up next, the leadership and communication articles. Stick around.